In 2023, the Baltimore Ravens defense was so good that it put Mike Macdonald on the map as a head coaching candidate. He had several interviews during the offseason, obviously, eventually hired by the Seahawks for the work he did in Baltimore. Might we now be seeing him building this Seahawks defense in the Ravens' image? There are some striking similarities to how it all came together and some interesting individual player parallels also. And then when we go back and we retrace the steps and listen to the verbiage and what Mike Macdonald's been telling us for the last 10 weeks as this defense came together, might that bode well for the offense following suit? Not sure what I'm talking about. I'll explain next on Seahawks Forever, powered by BetUS.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan VMs.
Welcome in, everybody. The Monday after, always a much happier Monday, obviously, when the team wins. Seahawks coming off back-to-back divisional wins as they have moved themselves into first place in the NFC West. Let's take a look at it just to make matters official. Doesn't it look nice? 11 games into the season now to see the Seahawks standing at the top of the NFC West. And things don't get any easier for the Rams and 49ers. They have some tough games ahead as you look at what's remaining on their schedule over the next 3 to 4 weeks. The Seahawks again turn right around and get the Cardinals in just a couple of weeks down in Arizona. I'll actually be at that game. Let me know if any of you are going to be at that game as well. I'm traveling down to Arizona and would love to meet up with you and say hi. Before we get into this, hit that thumbs up button on the YouTube channel, subscribe to the channel, share it. It's the best way to support the channel. Hit that bell button. That way you'll get notification of future episodes. On audio, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. And if you really like the show, give us a rating or a review. We'd really appreciate that. All the other ways that you can support the channel are down below. Also, jumped on the Hawk Zone Rundown podcast with Bryce and Ryan last night for their live reaction show. If you didn't get a chance to see that, it lives here on my channel as well. We co-streamed it, or better yet, head on over to those guys' channel and give them a subscription. They are getting closer and closer to 1,000 subs. That is a big, big deal in the world of YouTube. Let's help support those guys as well. So the Seahawks in first place today as we look ahead to playing the Jets this week. It'll be interesting to see. Maybe we'll even hear some news later today, or maybe by the time you consume this episode, of whether the Seahawks are even going to face Aaron Rodgers in New York this week. Reports over the weekend, I think Adam Schefter was the first one to break it, that Rodgers may not finish out the season with the Jets. They may place him on injured reserve. There are reports that he has been more injured, more banged up than the team and he have let on, and that the team has asked him to kind of dial things back, and he refuses. He wants to play through it. And so they may place him on injured reserve. There's even a possibility, reportedly, that they could release him and move on, similar to what the Giants have done with Daniel Jones. So the Seahawks could be facing Tyrod Taylor this Sunday in New York. And it's interesting, kind of a cautionary tale as we look ahead early in the season to how the schedule is going to play out and just how fluid of a situation that is and how that evolves as time goes. You know, when the schedule first came out, you look ahead and you think, okay, a Jets team that's all in on Aaron Rodgers. He's back. He's healthy. It's in December. It's going to be cold. It's not great conditions back there sometimes that time of year. That's going to be a tough one. Now the Jets are in disarray. You know, fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, fired Joe Douglas, their GM, last week. And now the Rodgers situation playing out. Not the team we thought the New York Jets could be heading into that one. Couple of injury updates. Anthony Bradford, who left the game early yesterday, had to be helped off the field. Obviously, was in a lot of pain and was replaced by Christian Haynes, the third-round draft pick out of Connecticut. So the most extensive action for Haynes, who, by my eye, live in the stadium and on the rewatch last night, played well. Mike Macdonald spoke highly of his performance today on his coach's show. And then Bradford seen on the sideline in a boot. So not sure what the timeline is going to be on that, but certainly didn't look like a guy that was going to be able to bounce back and play based on how he walked off the field and then being seen in boot later. Maybe injured reserve might even be likely for Bradford, which would give Haynes even more of an opportunity there at that right guard spot. And then this, about 15 minutes before I hit record, a cryptic tweet from Uchenna Nwosu saying, perfect timing. Could we be seeing Uchenna Nwosu coming back this week and adding to that edge group for the Seahawks, which would make that growing, gelling defense coming together week by week even more formidable if we could get Uchenna Nwosu back at close to 100%. And just add him to what I'm going to talk about today with some of those parallels between what Macdonald built in Baltimore and what he appears to be building here in Seattle. But first, head on over to BetUS, see the money lines for the Seahawks and Jets and all the prop bets that they have available as well. And if you sign up for a new account today, they'll give you 150% sign-up bonus on your first deposit, 125% on your second and third deposits, up to $2,000. You can do that at BetUS using the promo code YouTube150. And if you haven't taken advantage of the offer yet, Manscaped right now offering 20% off plus free shipping on their new product, the electric foil shaver, the Chairman Pro. This is an outstanding product, whether you like a close, smooth, professional style shave, or you like to leave a little bit of stubble. You can do it yourself in your own home without having to pay for it, without having to make an appointment. Interchangeable heads, it's waterproof, it's wireless, very, very quality product. Best electric foil shaver I've ever used. And again, right now you can get that for 20% off plus free shipping. That's over at manscaped.com using the promo code Seahawks. All right, let's get into this. I've touched on this a little bit earlier in the season as we could see it unfolding, but now, we've got a 3-week sample size now. The Rams game going into the break, which, they didn't win that game, obviously, goes to overtime. They lose 26-20. But that was really the first time that we saw that defense start to look like we thought they would when Macdonald was hired. And then they go into the bye week, and then they come back, and we see that performance being sustainable and repeatable against the 49ers. Holding them to the least number of explosive plays in Kyle Shanahan's head coaching career, really bottling up Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Juwan Jennings had a big game, but they were able to control the rest of that offense. And then this week against a Cardinals team that had won 4 straight heading into their bye week and then getting the bye week to prepare for the Seahawks. And Drew Petzig, their offensive coordinator, getting all sorts of buzz as an up-and-coming name, potentially a head coaching candidate this offseason. Kyler Murray playing some of the best football of his career, albeit in a different fashion, a little bit more of a point guard now, not as many deep shots down the field. That running game being as potent as it was, and the Seahawks completely shut that down in what was really a dominant defensive performance yesterday. And one that, I'll use that word again, just each week feels more and more sustainable and repeatable. That we're seeing a group come together. And we're seeing it come together in ways in which Mike Macdonald has been telling us for weeks we would see it come together, that he was confident in that. We'll get to some of that sound in a little bit. I'm going to try to take you on this little path here and then connect the dots. And hopefully you'll come away feeling really encouraged about where this defense is at. During that first season in 2022, Macdonald's first chance to be defensive coordinator, call the plays, call the shots. First 8 games, they gave up an average of 22 points. They gave up 38 to Miami. It's good. 22 points a game over 8 games is not bad, but it's not dominant by any means. Final 9 games of that season in 2022 really started to click, and they only gave up 14 points a game the rest of the season. And then you carry that over into 2023. They became the first defense in NFL history to lead the league in points per game, sacks, and takeaways. It's what really got him noticed, ultimately got him hired here in Seattle. You look a little closer, and there are some striking parallels to what we're seeing here in Seattle. First of all, Seahawks' first 8 games under Macdonald, 24 points a game given up. The last 3 games now, they're giving up just 16 points per game. Taking the ball away more, getting more pass pressure, much more assignment sound, limiting explosives. So again, 2022, Macdonald's first season in Baltimore, first 8 games, 22 points a game. Final 9 games, 14. Seahawks' first 8 games this season, 24 points a game given up, just 16 points per game in the last 3. But it goes beyond that. There are some really fascinating, to me anyway, and I hope you agree, personnel parallels, we'll call them. After those first 8 games with the Ravens in 2022, what did Baltimore do? They went out at before the trade deadline and acquired Roquan Smith, inside linebacker for the Chicago Bears. Gave up quite a bit to get him. I think it was a second and a fourth, or second and a fifth. Acquired him in his age 25 season. The Seahawks go out and acquire Ernest Jones this year from the Titans right before the trade deadline. He just turned 25. It's no coincidence that that's when that Ravens defense started to come together. Having that guy in the middle. It's no coincidence, in my opinion, that that's when things really started to click for the Seahawks here. Some of it was guys just trusting each other, learning the scheme, absorbing it, believing in their assignments, and doing their job. We're seeing that. But it all starts in the middle. We just weren't getting the play out of that linebacker position. So that's one parallel. But I think there are others. Leonard Williams yesterday dominated that football game in a way that was historically significant for the Seahawks. 2.5 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, bunch of pressures. Corbin Smith, friend of the show, right, from All Seahawks and Locked On Seahawks, said today that he believes it's the most dominant performance by a Seahawks defensive lineman since Cortez Kennedy was roaming the field. That goes a long ways back, and there were some great defensive linemen. We're talking Michael Bennett, right? There've been some guys along the way, really dominated in such a way that kind of reminded me of the performance of Justin Madubuike in 2023, and that up until that point, the former third-round pick had been a good, not great player, not a player that people were talking about in terms of, hey, his second contract is going to be top of the market. This guy's going to get paid. 2023 really found his role and got comfortable in that defense. I think that's happening with Leonard Williams. I think he had to play out of position a little bit early in the season as they were moving him around, trying to find out what worked best. They're playing him over the nose a little bit more earlier in the year. Finding that spot now and getting comfortable with it, and the guys around him doing their jobs as well, just allowing Williams to do what he does best, and that is unleash hell and just play with his hair on fire. That's as hard as not that he's ever not played hard, but the effort from the get-go yesterday spoke of a guy who just doesn't have to stop and think and can just react now. He even said after the game yesterday that he knew when he woke up he was going to have a great day. And I think that just speaks to not just, athletes talk about being in the zone, but I think more in a big picture. He just feels good about where this defense is at and what his role in it is. And when you can play and not have to think anymore, especially when you have elite ability already, that's when great things happen. But it goes beyond that. I have a couple other examples of players that match up, I think, pretty well to the storyline that we saw as that Ravens defense evolved through 22 and 23. And I'll get to those in just a moment. But first, this. As I sit here today, I am once again wearing my favorite jeans I have ever owned. Wore them to the game yesterday. They're made by Doer, built for doing, D-U-E-R, all sorts of lifestyle apparel. But for me, it's the jeans that really stand out. These things have 20% stretch. They are built to last. They're made from antibacterial and sustainable materials. You know, the second you pull these things out of the package that they are quality. And right now, their Black Friday sale is on, and there is a special offer for viewers and listeners of this show. If you go over to doer.com, shopdoer.com, again, that's DUER/forever, you can get up to 50% off of these jeans today. That Black Friday sale runs through December 2nd. Go take advantage of it now at shopdoer.com/forever. This episode also brought to you by BetterHelp. Thanksgiving, just a couple of days away. It's a time for gratitude. It's a time to give thanks. Do you give enough gratitude to yourself? Christmas right around the corner as well. The holidays can be a stressful time. We get together with family, some of whom we haven't seen in a long time. There are seasonal depression issues in certain parts of the country. Definitely here in the Pacific Northwest. That's something I've had to admit to myself over the last few years, that's something that affects me. And I know I can say personally, this time of year is the most hectic and busy time for me professionally, my main career, and even this gig right here, right? It can be a drain emotionally and physical, how busy it is this time of year. And I'll tell you this, if you've ever considered trying therapy, now is the time, and BetterHelp is the way, because you get to do it from the comfort of your own home on your timeline. You fill out a brief questionnaire. They match you with a licensed therapist. If you don't think that's a match, they'll give you another one, and it costs nothing additional. And right now, you can try BetterHelp and get 10% off your first month. Go to betterhelp.com. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/forever for 10% off your first month. Big thanks to all the sponsors of the program. Other ways you can support the show are down below in the description. And of course, once again, just to remind you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the best way to support the channel. So I've gone over a couple of pretty obvious, really surface level parallels that I see between what Macdonald built in Baltimore and what he appears to be building here in Seattle on the defensive side of the ball, in, Roquan Smith to Ernest Jones and Justin Madubuike to Leonard Williams. What about some others? How about Geno Stone becoming the player that he was in 2023, tying for the NFL lead in interceptions? Former 7th-round pick, had to battle his way up that roster. It didn't happen for him right away, and it wasn't until 23 that he became a full-time starter, cashed in on the free agent market after that year. Many of you wanted the Seahawks to pursue him as a free agent in the offseason, bring one of Macdonald's guys to him. How about Kobe Bryant, a guy that won the Jim Thorpe Award in college, was a 4th-round pick of the Seahawks 3 years ago, played, converted, started on the outside, and then he played some nickel and has had his struggles along the way. They moved him to safety last year. In the preseason, we saw him play that position, but throughout the season, he was banged up, had a toe injury, and it never really felt like that coaching staff committed to him playing safety, but this one has, and we're seeing it. And we were seeing it in glimpses early in the season. And then Rayshawn Jenkins, when he got hurt, that hand injury, had to go on injured reserve. Kobe Bryant took over the starting job, has not let it go. And in fact, Jenkins came back, was healthy yesterday. And as I sort of speculated in the preview show, he wasn't going to get his starting job back. Kobe's been too good. And in fact, we saw Jenkins out there playing that big nickel closer to the line of scrimmage. And I think that might be the best role for him moving forward. But Kobe Bryant's your starting safety. And the development there of him in that role has been remarkable. And it's something that Macdonald has talked about throughout the season. You can feel the enthusiasm now as he talks about Kobe Bryant and his development. Here's Macdonald on Kobe.
Kobe's a great example of a guy that of just kind of how we want to build this thing. It's like, hey, come in, work, compete, do the things every day, stack all the great reps, get the confidence, get an opportunity, take advantage and run with it. And then let your abilities kind of just go from there. And then to his credit, this guy's prepared at an elite level, and since he got the starting job, really before, we're trying to get him on a dime, and then when he got the opportunity to play safety, he just took it and ran with it. And it was just like, man, this is what it's about, man. This guy's doing a heck of a job. So
now there's more to that than just, hey, Kobe's been great and he's the starter now. But again, we've heard this repetitive message throughout the year. that if you work hard in practice, you work hard in prep, and you study, you bust your tail, if you have the ability and it marries up with that effort, you're going to get an opportunity, and you're going to be prepared for that opportunity and take it and run with it. We've heard the opposite of that in some cases, that the reason Christian Haynes didn't seize that right guard job, even though he was a day 2 draft pick and highly thought of coming out of the draft, and even though we all saw with our own eyes Anthony Bradford and some of the struggles he had early in the season, but we heard the coaching staff say, hey, he hasn't quite done those things behind the scenes to force us to play him. Kobe Bryant did. And I'm not so sure if Rayshon Jenkins hadn't hurt himself and had to be placed on IR, do any of us doubt that Kobe wouldn't have overtaken him and earned that starting spot anyway, even if Jenkins hadn't gotten hurt? It's that kind of language from Macdonald that I want to kind of keep going back to, because it's setting up a theory. Maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think there's some validity to it on the other side of the ball as well, and give us reason for hope. But first, I want to take that now and apply it to another player. Yet another one of these parallels, although this one's not exact. But how about Patrick Queen to Tyrese Knight? Now, Queen was in his 4th season in 2023, had been considered a bit of a first-round bust. There were those in Baltimore that were disappointed that he was a fine player, but he wasn't making the kind of impact expected when you take a linebacker in the first round. But he blossomed after Roquan Smith was traded there. And the two of them together formed a duo that was really formidable and allowed Macdonald to do everything he wanted to do on that defense, because those two linebackers were so versatile. And I think we're seeing that now from the rookie, Tyrese Knight, the 4th round pick out of UTEP. We saw him play early in the season when Jerome Baker was hurt, and he looked passable. He looked manageable. You could see the signs. Well, now it's kind of shocking to watch what's been happening the last couple of weeks with him playing next to Ernest Jones after the release of Terrell Dodson. Like, that's how good Knight was behind the scenes, that they felt like they could release Dodson, their leading tackler. And now we see Knight all over the field, making plays, looking like a perfect tandem next to Ernest Jones, not looking like a rookie. So listen to some of these similarities. This is Mike Macdonald talking about Tyrese Knight.
Happy for him. He's doing a lot during the week to prepare. And he's just another example of a guy. Man, I'm something like a broken record, but it's like, just stack good moments, good days, good reps, good preparation, take care of your body, study the heck out of the game plan, over communicate, take it one play at a time. I mean, it's just like, that's just how you have to do it. And to his credit, that's what he does. And there's no extra about him. It's just business as usual. And he's very poised, even in awesome NFL environments. And you got to give him credit for that, for being a rookie.
Yeah, pretty exciting. And repetition, right? Repetitiveness. He said almost the exact same thing about Tyrese Knight that he did about Kobe Bryant. Bust your ass behind the scenes, do the right things, and you're going to get your opportunities. And then you're going to be ready for those opportunities. How about another parallel? How about Devin Witherspoon kind of as this unit's Kyle Hamilton? Again, Hamilton was a high draft pick that it took them a minute to figure out exactly how to dial in how they wanted to use him. And it was when they started bringing him closer to the line of scrimmage that he really blossomed and became the elite level player that he appears to be. Kind of seeing the same thing from Devin Witherspoon, aren't we? I mean, he played a little different animal, right? He's a corner by trade as opposed to a safety. He plays outside some. But it seems like the last couple of weeks, he has really turned a corner and started to impact the game in so many different ways. You feel him out there. You hear Mike Macdonald say that. And you do. And obviously, he forced the interception from Jonathan Hankins the week before. He caused the pick 6 interception from Kobe Bryant yesterday with his outstanding play, getting to Kyler Murray and pressuring him on 4th and 1. And so I want you to listen to this. The first bite that I'm going to play for you is Witherspoon talking about Macdonald.
He been dialing up them calls, and a lot of them been on point. He said they was gonna run this in this situation, this area of field, and that's exactly what they did. So it's like, as far as the game plan and everything we talk about, bro, everything has been on point. So he's just been in his ballot.
That's powerful, isn't it? Like he's telling us this is what we're going to run in this situation when it comes up in a game. That situation comes up. That's the call Macdonald makes. The players believe in it, and it's working. Now, rewind about a month or 6 weeks when the defense was getting shredded, especially in the running game. And we heard Macdonald throughout the week, every single week, say the same things. And some of you, I have to admit there were moments where I also kind of thought, we need to see it. We keep hearing it. When are we going to see it? Here's an example of that. This is Macdonald reacting to someone asking him, hey, here's what Devin said. He said you were in your bag. What does that mean? And asking for Mike's opinion on how the defense is coming together. And this is not from his coach's show today. This is from after the game yesterday.
We're playing well together. We're operating well together. I think the guys haven't been with us, been kind of together for a minute now, and we're on the same page about how we're going to play the game. Look, I like to think that I'm trying to grow as a coach as well from week to week. And in order to do that, you have to understand your players and communicate with them and how well you coach stuff. So all of our coaches are doing that. I think we're growing together as a unit. I appreciate that he feels that way. But look, the players make this thing come to life. I mean, they deserve the credit here. I mean, they're putting it on the line and executing at a high level and playing together.
It's a very, very consistent message. And while sometimes that repetitiveness can turn people off, it's as long as you're seeing it happen on the field, then there's nothing negative about it, right? Like there were times that we heard the same things from Pete Carroll over and over and over again. He has his mantras, he has his mission statements, he has his little catchphrases, but the last few years, the performance on the field wasn't married with those statements the way that it was earlier in his tenure. And that's what became frustrating. And I think ultimately led to his dismissal because it just wasn't happening on defense. You think about some of the great coaches around the league. Does Mike Tomlin ever say anything different from week to week? He talks about the same principles every week, right? Running the football, being physical, playing hard physical defense, making the most of your opportunities on offense, and being good on third down and in the red zone, all those things. Bill Belichick was the most repetitive coach of all time. He would just literally say the same things every single week. But you would see for a very extended period of time in both those examples, the performance of the field on Sunday matching up with the verbiage. It was hard when it didn't match up. And I know some of you expressed in comments and in live feeds and such that was frustrating for you. But how do you feel now? We're seeing it come to life. And that's why I want to finish with this. Because now, suddenly, it's flipped. And the concern is about the offense, right? Even though we're seeing some positive things the last couple of weeks, they gave up 5 sacks yesterday, but there were also more times when Geno had excellent pass protection, had time to throw in a way that we haven't seen so much up until this point. I think we can all agree now, 2 games in, that Olu team is doing an outstanding job at center and is probably an upgrade over what they were getting from Connor Williams. Abe Lucas, even though his PFF grade wasn't very high today, and on the rewatch last night, you could really tell the conditioning still isn't there. There are times where he looks explosive, and then other times where he's really dragging. There was one time where he pulled to the left on a blast play, and he just seemed like he was running in quicksand a little bit. But it just, to me, it appears to only be a conditioning situation. And then Christian Haynes getting his opportunity yesterday, and Mike Macdonald said he thought he played well. I think there's an opportunity now for that offensive line to get some continuity, but the running game's been inconsistent. And Geno Smith has had his moments where he's made some bad decisions. But this is what Mike Macdonald said today about the offense. Listen closely.
The low-hanging fruit is like, hey, we threw the pick in the red zone. There's a couple penalties that got us behind the sticks. balls in jeopardy a few times. We didn't get the explosives that we were looking at getting. But, I mean, you look at the other side, I think our run game is still making strides. I think we kind of know who we are in the run game and the compliments off of it. We just got to keep hammering away. It's going to come to life. I mean, it's some really cool stuff on tape. I really believe that. And so I'm excited about where we're going.
Doesn't that sound almost exactly like how he's been talking about the defense for the last 11 weeks? Even during that stretch where they couldn't stop a nosebleed and teams were running all over the field on them and assignments were being missed. And we were seeing two guys, sometimes three in the same gap, and we couldn't tackle. He said those things about the defense that, look, I know it doesn't look very good to you, but we're seeing the signs on tape. We're seeing some good things. We just have to clean it up. We're going to get there. We're trending in that direction. That's exactly what he just said about the offense. And now we know who that group of 5 guys is going to be. And they have an opportunity now over the next 7 games or 6 games to build some continuity and play together, to communicate, to learn each other, to trust each other and trust in their own assignments in a similar way to what we're seeing on defense. So I think there's a lot to feel positive about right now. That the defense appears to be at a place that's formidable and sustainable and gives this team a chance to win every single week. I don't see a team left on the schedule that is so foreboding that I don't think this defense can handle them. There are some tests, certainly, but I think with each passing week now, we're seeing this defense pass those tests, and we can start to get really confident about what they're going to give us on a week-to-week basis. And now, if the offense can get there too, based on what Macdonald says, he thinks they're close, and we're talking about a team that can make a run. I saw Jeff Simmons, friend of the show, said he thinks they go 3-3. No, I'm sorry. Griffin Sturgeon of the Overload podcast said he thinks they go 3-3 the rest of the way. I think 4-2 is a little bit more possible. I think part of that equation was that he factored in having to go down to Arizona in 2 weeks. Facing a team twice in 2 weeks kind of gives the advantage to the team that lost a little extra motivation. Plus, they'll be playing at home. But I think there's a good chance the way this defense is playing, this team can finish 4-2, end up winning 10 games, which would be 1 less than I thought at the beginning of the season, 2 less than I thought when I got really excited after the Detroit game. Despite the loss, I thought they were really trending upward. I just underestimated how much longer it was going to take to get that defense together. So that's where we sit today. Like, this team's in first place. None of us would have thought that possible a month ago with the way that defense was performing. How do you feel about these last 6 games? Let's give me some predictions. What do you think their record will be over these last 6? And do you think it'll be good enough to get into the playoffs? The Rams and 49ers have some difficult matchups coming up the next couple of weeks, especially the 49ers, or especially the Rams, I'm sorry. The Cardinals play the Vikings this week before the rematch with us down in Arizona. Again, I'm going to be at that game. Let me know if you're going to that game in Arizona. It'd be cool to meet up, have a toast, share a beer. I'm going to be flying in at 10 a.m. that morning, heading straight to the stadium. So let me know. Shout out to BetUS for sponsoring the program. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Seahawks Forever. And again, if you haven't checked out that full review show, you can either do it here on my page. I joined the guys from the Hawks Zone Rundown podcast, Bryce and Ryan, on their show. But I would actually prefer, to give them a view and give them a subscription, give them a sub over on their channel, help them get to 1,000. So until next time, this is Seahawks Forever. Forever and always go Hawks. Thanks for watching, you guys.